Hello guys, I'm back with this tutorial on Node.js today. Till now we have been trying out different backend frameworks through which we were serving the front-end files. So the most, one of the most important framework that we'll be using today is Express. I mean, there are it's wait a minute. So it's a very important frameworks because most of the companies right now they use this framework Express.js. So for example, if you see the Uber app, Uber backend is written in Node, and similarly there are many big companies who who uses Node.js. Uh, so today we'll be seeing how to boot up the Node.js server and how to use Vue.js in that, and yeah, so we'll try to do that. Also, if there is time, we'll discuss about the authentications. So and authentication takes more time than because you should know how the authentication process works, how those this Java JWT tokens and all those things work. So I'll discuss about that. And I'll also have one more seconds part of this where I'll be explaining the how to implement the authentications in servers. So yeah, so let's get started. Sorry for the delay. Actually, there were some technical issues. I couldn't start it, but anyway, we'll get started right now. So I share my desktop. So for getting started with Express, you should have Node.js installed in your laptop. So for installing Node.js, you can go to Node.js server and Node.js website and install it from there itself. There will be already documentation on how to install Node.js provided in this website. So let us wait. So if you go to nodejs.org, you will have these download options. So you can download as per your, as per your environments, you can select whatever you want to download. For me, I've already downloaded the macOS Lux version of Node.js, so it's not required for me. Also, you need NPM. So NPM is the Node Package Manager. So using NPM will be installing all those libraries that will be required for these projects. Yeah, so today's session is very important because our, further projects, there are maximum many projects on Node, and yeah, so if we go through these sessions properly, you can do at least 70% of the projects that will be assigned. So yeah, so we'll be using a library of Node named Express. So Express is Express CLI helps generate. So this is Express. Using Express, you can, just like Flask framework, we'll be using Express framework for Node.js. So the last session or last tutorial, I have already explained how to use Flask framework to host your index file or to host your Python functions or something. So similarly, in Node.js, we'll be using Express to host our index file or any functions or do a backend processes. So yeah, so we'll be using Express. There's one more library. Okay, so we'll be using Express. There is one more tool for generating that Express CL. So we'll use that. It's Express CLI, I guess. So we can use npx for installing this Express generator. So first of all, you have to open the command prompt. Yes, and go to any of your directory where you want to do all those kind of coding. So go to the directory. For me, I'll be using desktop, and yeah, and I will do npx install Express generator. So if I do npx install Express generator, it will automatically install Express generator in my okay. So yeah, so Express generator will ask you, so using this so for the lower version of Node, you have to use this Node install global, so npm install globally Express generator, and then use Express and uh, these options to generate your server files. So what this Express generator does is, like, instead of you writing the server files, it will create a startup templates through from where you can get started. So for me, whenever I get a project or something, I used to use Express generator, and it will automatically generate a template. So after the template is generated, I used to start from the template and then work according to my need. So yeah, so for using Express generator, you can use npx Express generator, or either you can do that for the newer version of Node, and for an older version of Node, you can use npm install globally Express generator and then use Express. For using that, you have to, okay, so it asks me destination is not empty. Do you want to continue? No. So I'll go to the older version. So in older version, you have to install Express generator globally. Yeah, so I already have Express generator in my laptop, so it got updated. So how to use it? Very simple. You just have to put Express, and then you'll see there are multiple options. So here, if you see properly, we'll have help. We have E for EJS, E or double dash EJS. We have add view. Okay, so EJS engine support. We have view. Fine. So this EJS is kind of a template renderer. So what it does, uh, whenever you have an HTML file in Flask, you take that HTML file and then render it in the backend of Flask. So for the case of Node.js or Express, we will be using EJS file. EJS is a kind of a file, or it's an HTML file basically. So where you can, I mean, change a little bit of the templates and then render it according to your needs. So how that Express file works, we'll see. So for generating the uh, starter template, we'll be using these commands, Express E, and then we'll be typing the directory name where I want to uh, I want to generate all those files. So for example, today's session will be on yeah. So for just I'll create a sample. So as you can see, it already generated these files, and now it says me to do cd sample and get into that sample directory. So yeah, guys, you can, yeah, so installing is pretty much peaceful. So you can install npm is a node package library, and before that you have to install Node. After that you can do npm install globally Express generator, at G means globally, and Express generator. After that you can put Express, and it says the how to use the command of Express your options and your directory. So in your options, you can select whichever option you want. For example, I want EJS as my rendering engine. So I gave E dash E. So yeah, so that's how you can put pug or HBS handlebars. So HBS is also one more type of rendering engine. Also there is a pug. Pug is also a rendering engine. So yeah, there are pretty much other also like Hogan. So without view engine also you can use. So with view engine you can directly do changes in the template and render it to the front end. So that's pretty much handy. So right now we have created the folder. Now we'll go to the folder. We'll get inside the folder. Now what we'll do, we'll install the uh, whatever in the folder. What there is a package.json. So in the package.json, if you see already, it already defined all those libraries that will be required basically to get started. So it automatically generated the package.json for you and gave the name whatever you have inserted, and also version number 0.01. As it's not mandatory to give version number, but whenever you are doing some kind of update to your library files, for example you yourself is writing an npm library and you want to update it and keep track of whatever version it is, so you can put version number. But generally for today's tutorial we won't be using this. Yeah, so private and all, it's an keyword you can put. And also scripts are there. So what happens when you want to when you want to run this server, so you basically provide the package.json file, your scripts. So what this script does is like you can insert in script start test, or there is one more options, multiple options are there. So when in start I have inserted this command. It's a basically we can run directly this command into terminal itself, but instead of running it directly from the terminal, we use uh, this script tag. So what this script tag does, it when you do npm start, it will come to this script and it will see what command should it run. So once you have already mentioned it should do node uh, bin www. That means it will run this www file which is inside bin. So yeah, so pretty much it will do that. So yeah, so if you see we have folder, I'll show you. We have a bin folder. Inside bin we have www. So whenever a server starts up, so basically this files loads up. So yeah, so what it does, in the package.json it is written that it should run this www. So whenever you want to boot up the server, you have to run this file first. So the idea behind this file, I'll explain it later. I'll tell you now what is uh, how to install these dependencies. So installing the dependencies is very simple. npmi in short form, npmi is a short form of npm install. So you can write npm install, but I'll prefer npmi. So if you do npmi, it will automatically install all those modules or the libraries that is required for these projects. For our projects, we will require cookie parser. So cookie parser is very much useful when you are using cookies. It parses your cookies from the request and gives you in the roots file itself. There is a debug library. So using debug, you can do debug operations. For example, printing out. Uh, you can so it will check whether you have errors or not. So it will give you the errors in the front end itself. There is EJS library, as I have already mentioned. It means it renders the HTML file depending upon what data you are providing to the render function. So according to the data, it will render the HTML file. And it has Express. Express is the server, or using Express you'll be booting up. It's a framework like Flask. So yeah, so HTTP errors. So HTTP errors will give you errors that is like it will give you different kind of errors. For example, you don't have any page, it will give you 404. So there are other 500 errors and there are multiple errors. So HTTP errors gives you the same. yeah, pretty much everything is covered here. Morgan and all I'll explain later. Yeah, so yeah, we'll go. What we'll do now, we'll run this server first. So for running this server, as I have already mentioned, there is a script text start. So what you will do is like you have to just do npm start. So what npm start does, it runs the script that is already mentioned in the package.json. So if you see in the package.json, we can change the script to something else. But yeah, so but our server file starts at www. So we'll run the www using Node. So our start does the same. So npm start, and it runs the I mean, so it runs the www. So when it runs the www, you can see basically in the www it is written, it will start in port 3000. So what you can do, you can go to localhost and you can go to 3000 and check the whatever you have right now, what you have done is already it running in port 3000. So yeah, so your server file is ready. Now you can do your edits, and similarly you can yeah, so it will automatically do all those changes. So before that, I'll explain you, there is one more library. So the library name is uh, NodeMon. So what NodeMon does, it's automatically refreshes, or it automatically boots up your it's automatically boots up refresh. It automatically shut downs the server and uh, boot ups the server depending upon what changes you are doing in your code. So for using NodeMon, it's very simple. You have to create one more. So what does this dev dependencies means? So there is, I'll check what is this keyword is correct or not. For checking, I have to check it inside. So yeah, so these dev dependencies are the dependencies that you don't need in production site. For example, if you are hosting this site in some in server, you don't need NodeMon, because I don't want every time, I don't want it to load every time, because I'm not changing the code in the production. So that's why I keep this libraries as a dev dependencies. And yes, for development purpose, you can use these libraries, but for the production purpose, you don't have to use this. So for example, in this case, I'll be using NodeDemon. NodeDemon is the library using which you can automatically refresh the server without any issues. So yeah, so if I do save, and if I do again npm, I'll close the server, I'll do npmi. It will take json.parse because there is issues in this. I have uh, something issue in this. Yeah, so that comma was an issue. So it is ready now. It asks for some fund and all. It's not required. So these are warnings you can ignore anyway. Yeah, so NodeMon is installed. Right now, what I'll do, I'll change it to NodeMon. So now instead of Node running the server, NodeMon will run the server. So what I'll do npm start. You can see NodeMon is running the server. So what's the benefit of NodeMon is, like, if you do any changes in the code. So if I want to remove this router, and when I save it, you can see the NodeMon automatically changes. refreshes. So what happens, you don't have to close the server once again, start the server once again. In use NodeMN will handle those for you. And yeah, so you can do your editing right now. So everything is set up. Now you can do your editing. I will discuss about the kind of authentications that goes on, and I will also try. Uh, I'll also tell you like how to implement that, and it will be better if you guys implement this. Yeah, so there are different ways of authentication. So I'll explain it. So before getting into coding, so the basic way of the naive way of authentication is just store the password and the username in the server itself, in the database itself, and whenever a user logins, so you just check the password and the username and the user exists or not. So in this way, you just authenticate the person. But this is a very bad way of doing the authentication, because if the server or the database gets exposed, the entire user database will be uh, compromised. So it's a very bad way of doing authentications. There are many sites which does the same, because you will see there are multiple sites. If you ask them the password back, they will give you the password. So for example, it's recently uh, Intel had this kind of servers. So whenever the user asked for a password, so Intel used to give it back the password. But recently, if you see, they had some issues with compromised data. So now they have changed it to other way around, but initially they used to have it. Yeah, so this is the naive way of doing the authentication. The other way around is using a kind of private key to and to use this password and encrypt it and keep it in the server. So you have these keys. So what this keys does, you just take the password, it scrambles it, and so using a key, it will scramble it, and you store that scrambled thing inside the database. So whenever the user signs it, you also scramble that and check whether that scrambled password is matching with that. So, but the problem in this, if the yeah, so there will be one more key using which you can open it up. So scrambled password can be opened up. So in that case, you can see when you open the, if you have the key, or sometimes what happens, there will be people using your server. So there will be developers will be working on your server. So if the key gets exposed to the people, then the password database will get definitely exposed. So that is also the second most naive way of doing that. So the third way of doing an hashing of your password. So what you do, you take the password and you change it to some kind of hash, which is irreversible. So means you can change the password to that hash, but you can't change that hash back to the uh, password. So what you do, you just change the password into that hash and keep it in the database. Whenever a user signs in, you take the hash and you take the newly created hash and you match this. So what the hash does, it gives a unique hash ID to your object. So whether it's so for example, for us, it is a password object. So it's in password string. Now what you do, you pass it through the hash function, and hash function changes it to some kind of unique hash ID. So that hash ID is unique for every unique object. So next time when a user signs in, you change that password to a unique to the same using the same algorithm of hashing, and you get the same uh, ID. Now you compare those ID, and if it matches up, then you say the user is authenticated. So that is the other way around you can use in this authentication. But this is also naive, because Google recently released a uh, table of all those hash. So you can directly query in the hash table and you can get back the word from that. So what it did, so it took the entire combination of words and it converted it into hash and created this rainbow table. So if you search in internet, you will get this rainbow table. But you can put your hash in that table and get back the word. So yeah, if you pretty much, if you have a common password, uh, I mean some kind of word or letter, then you can easily get back the password from this rainbow table. So that is also a naive way of authentication. So the other way, the best way, or the most used way of authentication will be uh, creating a random string when a user signs up. So what you do, you take the password, okay, you take the password, you add append, or you just add one more string, one random string. You also keep that random string in the user's table. So what you do, you just append that random string, and now you hash that. Now you hash that um, added value, or the password plus random string, and you hash it and keep the hash in the table. So in that scenario, if you see, uh, that random string will make your password uncommon. So it's very difficult. It will be very difficult for the person or the hackers to, even if they get the database, even if they get the user's database, it will be very difficult for the hackers to uh, guess the password of that user, because every password will be appended by a random string, and the random string will increase the difficulty of the password. And also, I mean, you can't. The password becomes uncommon, and so you won't get in the rainbow table. So, what to do whenever the user signs up? You take the password, create a random string, and generate a random string, and then append that random string. Now you pass that password plus random string inside this hashing function, and you get some kind of hash code. Now you save this hash code into the server, and also the random string into the server. So next time when the user signs up, you take the I mean random string and the hash code. Sorry, yeah, you take the, when the user signs up, you take the password, and also you have the random string in this database. You append it again, you create the hash code, and you match the hash code with the existing hash code in the database. So if they both match, then the user is authenticated. If they doesn't match, that means user doesn't authenticate. So this is the basic, this is the most used way of, it's the most, I mean, it's currently the best way of implementing your user signed authentications. So right now, one more issue is like, whenever a database is there, it doesn't mean that everyone will get access to the database, right? So your database should not be accessed by everyone in this uh, websites, everyone in this public. So what you do, you keep some kind of authentications, or you keep some kind of role-based authentications. So what do you do whenever? So the point is, whenever every time you do a request, you should not send your password and email ID using your request. So when you do request to the server, you want some data. For example, uh, I want some information about my profile. So that's what I will first sign in, and yeah, and I'll save the password. And so I'll first sign in and check whether the user exists. And when I need the profile data, I should not send the email and the password once again, because that is the very bad way of doing it. Because every time if you send password and email, not only it increases the memory, it increases the request size, but also it is very, if there is one more middle layer, or if any in between any in your request, one more person is there, third person is there, he can actually decrypt the uh, request and get the password and email ID from that. So it's a very bad way of I mean, using the email and a password in every request. So what is the better way is like, whenever the user signs in, so you create a authentication token. So the authentication token, so you can create authentication token depending upon your own algorithm. So what this authentication token is like, it's a expired, it is kind of an token which will get expired. So how this authentication token is works is, there is a kind of I mean key and a, so how to encrypt and decrypt, right? So there will be you'll be having some kind of courses where they'll teach you how to encrypt and decrypt. So you take the user informations and use your key, and also you add a time. So you add a time before, so in that information, and just lock it down with your key, and then create some kind of encrypted code. So this encrypted code is like, you send this encrypted code on the user signs in. So that encrypted code is known as authentication token, and it will be saved in the user's local storage, and you don't have to save the user email ID and password. And yeah, so whenever a user wants a data or does any kind of transaction with the database, so it can use the authentication token. And what it does, it requests the server, all the authentication token will be in the header of that request. So what you do in the server, will check the authentication token and match the will unlock the authentication token using our key, and we'll get back the user information and match it up with the our database. And also, yeah, I will match it up with the database, and also check the expiry date, whether it has been expired or not. And yeah, if it doesn't expire and the roles of that user matches, then we'll provide them the information. And if it doesn't matches, we don't provide them that user information, and we'll give them some kind of authorizations, not you are not authorized to do that. So that kind of errors we can give it to them. So that's how authentication token works. So now the point is, I mean, authentication tokens get, expired. So authentication tokens get expired very. So the thing is, if you don't give that expiry date or value in the authentication token, then if anyone gets hold of your authentication token from your front end or your browser, he can do whatever he want with the server using your account. So there should be a expiry of that authentication token, so that even if he gets hold of your authentication token, after some time he won't be he can't do any kind of transaction with the server because it has been expired. So whenever you generate an authentication token, you make sure you give a expiry date. So that's what people do in the server. But now the point is, every time it expired, the user needs to sign in, so to get one more new authentication token. So there is an issue in that. So how to solve that issue is like refresh token. So what does this refresh token does? Uh, it is stored in the local storage. So what it does, whenever the users get authentication authentication token gets expired, what it does, it uses the refresh token and sends along with the authentication token. And what it does, it checks the refresh token, and if it matches to the server's refresh tokens, it will generate one more authentication token. So yeah, so I'm kind of confusing you guys. So how the entire system works, I'll tell you up in a single manner, combined manner, is like, when a user sign up, so we take the password, we generate a random string, we add it up. Okay, so how to do that is very simple. I'll also do it in Express in this code itself, not today, but next session. So we take the password, we take the random string, we add it up, then we hash it, and we store the hash value in the database along with that random string that has been generated. Now, when the user signs in, for example, I'm the user, I sign in, I send the password, I send the email ID. Now I take the random string from the database, I attach the random string with the password, and then I do hashing. When the hash value matches with the saved hash value in the database, we say the user is authenticated. Now that when the user is authenticated, we give them back an authentication token. So for our case, we'll take the entire user information, added with a expiry time. So we'll also add a timestamp of expiry, and we'll lock it down with a key and create a new authentication token and send it back to the user. So whenever the user signs in, the process is like we do all those kind of authentication, and we give the user back a authentication token. So there is, from the user side, there won't be anything in the server itself. The entire process of all those things happens, and we create an authentication token and give it back to the user. So yeah, so there should be one request in your user roots. So this is the user root. Basically, the entire thing works like that. It modularized. So what happens when you have a big chunk of software? You don't have to. I mean, you don't have to write the entire code in this single JS file. So I would prefer modularizing your code than using in a single file. So what this Express does, it modularizes the entire code into these JS files. So these are roots. So if you see, when I use app.use, that means when I do this thing, localhost / it redirects the entire request to this indexed router. So indexed router is this. So what is this indexed router? It's actually it's required from this. So yeah, it gets redirected to this JavaScript code. So leave all those things because it's confusing. I'll explain it in the later series. So leave all this if you are getting confused. So what it does, everything gets redirected to this. Now, whenever the user hits this, first of all, it will hit this, and it will be redirected to index router. Inside the index router, it will check whether it is this kind of request. And if it is this kind of request, it will render the index file or index view inside this index dot views inside this EJS file is there. So see, you can see welcome to title. So the title is, so the benefit of EJS is like you can dynamically change this title. So in the index itself, you can see title is expressed. So from the backend itself, you change the title. For example, hello 90. If I save it and if I reload it, you can see the GRU90 changes. So the index file, index.js works the same. Now we'll talk about these things later. The important part is like the entire thing of signing should be done in this users router. And yeah, and when the user sign in, you should give them back a authentication token and a refresh token. So the authentication token and the refresh token will be saved in the user's local storage. Similarly, the authentication tokens is also saved in the user's local storage. And next time when the user does transaction in the database, it will automatically, instead of checking the user's credential, instead of doing these sign in multiple times, it will check the authentication token and then return back the data depending upon the role. So I'll wrap it up again. So the sign up process works like that. You add the password with this random string and then you hash it down and create a hash code. You save the hash code, email ID, and the random string into the database. Once and the sign up process is complete. Along with that, you can also keep track of other parameters like its full name or its phone number or any other thing, but it doesn't matter. So so that's the basic thing. You will be storing the email ID and the password plus the hash password and the random string. Next time the user signs in, so you take the random string and then add it up in the password what you have given. So you just add it up and then create this some hash value, and then compare the hash value with those matches. You create a authentication token using the user's data. Take the user's data, put one more parameters as the expiry date. You just lock it down and give them back the authentication token. Plus, you also have to give a refresh token. So yeah, so refresh token, you can store it in a database anyway if you want. So next time when the user does any request to the database, he'll use their authentication token, and using that authentication token, we will check it out whether the user is it's a authenticated user or not. So the total was this, and in future I'll tell you how to implement it in Node.js, and yeah. So, and also how to use this third-party authentications like Auth0 or Gmail authentications, or like any other like LinkedIn based authentication